Imagine the introduction of Miles Morales in the epic 6th Spider-Man movie in the MCU. The reintroduction of iconic legacy heroes in a way that you couldn't imagine. A new era of supernatural horror threatening to tear the entire universe apart. And the introduction of not one, not two, but 3 brand new teams never before seen on the big screen. I'm the Caped Clinician and welcome to my MCU reboot Phase 2. Worlds collide. If you didn't catch Phase 1, that's up on my YouTube channel right now, so you can save this video, watch Phase 1, and come back to enjoy the full story. And without further ado, let's get straight into Phase 2. We're going to start off Phase 2 with a bang, with a brand new superhero team coming straight to the big screen. In February 2032, the first project of Phase 2 is Alpha Flight. So why Alpha Flight? Well, the new MCU is expanding. And Alpha Flight is a Canadian superhero team, which expands the MCU and its global reach in a way that we've never seen before. Not only that, but Alpha Flight have intimate ties with the X-Men, Wolverine, and the Hulk, especially in the Immortal Hulk comic run, where they briefly became Gamma Flight to fight against the Hulk. So they've got a lot of different ties that we're going to pull on throughout the rest of this phase. And I want Alpha Flight to kind of be like the new Guardians of the Galaxy, in a way. An underestimated team that people have never heard of, that we can give to a talented director and let them make it their own. I'm thinking someone maybe like Edgar Wright would be great for this project, but let me know down in the comments who you would like to direct this movie. In this movie, we're going to introduce the entire cast of Alpha Flight, like Guardian, Sasquatch, and Puck, and the villains are going to be a secret cult villain called Zodiac. This is a really interesting set of villains who actually most recently appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man Worldwide from a few years ago. That's when Peter Parker owned Parker Industries and he went to fight global threats. Zodiac would be a really interesting set of villains, because we haven't really seen a superhero team fighting a villain team before in the MCU, and that's going to distinguish Alpha Flight from everything we've seen before. It's not going to be a massive world-ending movie, but it's going to have stakes similar to something like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and I think it's going to be really exciting for general audiences to meet this brand new team. And the effects of this movie are going to ripple throughout the rest of the MCU going forward. In the ending and the post-credits scene, I want to do 2 things. The first is just have the team sitting around, having a jovial conversation, kind of like the shawarma scene at the end of the Avengers. And I want them to slip in a little reference to Logan, Wolverine, from our Wolverine TV show from Phase 1. They're a Canadian team after all, and it would be fun to suggest that they have a little bit of history with Logan. The second thing is have one of the members of Alpha Flight be revealed to be a traitor, a secret spy within the organisation working not for Nick Fury or S.H.I.E.L.D., but for Thunderbolt Ross. It would be really interesting to explore the geopolitical consequences of this in future movies, and it would give Alpha Flight a bit of a unique edge and darkness that it might be missing from the main movie. Next up, in May 2032, is the return and a goodbye to a beloved MCU staple. May 2032, Spider-Man, Great Responsibility. Now this movie, I imagine, is the send-off for Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man. I'm not killing Peter Parker, so don't get worried in the comments. I'm not going to kill him, I'm just going to take him off the board for now. Tom Holland has expressed that he might want to step back from making movies once he becomes a family man, so I'd imagine at most he's got Brand New Day, Spider-Man 5, which was in our Phase 1, and now Spider-Man 6. Great Responsibility. But what is that Great Responsibility? Well, this is where we start to weave in the themes of legacy and succession, as Peter Parker grapples with the legacy left by Uncle Ben and the legacy that he's going to leave as a husband and a father, soon to be, with his partner Mary Jane Watson. I also want to contrast that with Norman Osborn and the legacy that he's leaving with his son Harry, and the legacy Harry's going to leave with his son Normie. I want this to really be a big family soap opera drama, just like some of the best Spider-Man stories of all time, like The Child Within. And if you want to hear a little bit more about that and my full pitch for this, let me know down in the comments. But how does Miles Morales fit into all of this? Well, I don't want Miles Morales to play a massive role in this movie. It's really a culmination of Peter's journey, and I don't want Miles to step on Peter's toes, nor do I want that going the other way around. I want Miles to be introduced as being bitten by a genetically altered spider produced by Norman Osborn, and I want Miles to be actually quite young in this movie, so he can reappear in the future of the MCU and come into his own as Spider-Man. Our post-credit scene will have Miles making his new suit at home for the very first time, charting a whole new course for the legacy of Spider-Man in the MCU. Now, if you watched my MCU reboot Phase 1, you know that November is a huge month for my Marvel releases. Piggybacking off Doomsday, Secret Wars, and all of the amazing releases from Phase 1, November is going to be big again. Remember how I said Alpha Flight is kind of like our new Guardians of the Galaxy vibe? A smaller scale team? How about an actual Guardians of the Galaxy vibe? Yeah, that's right, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 4 is finally coming to the MCU. This is a project that I'm really excited to talk to you guys about. It's going to be difficult to do a Guardians of the Galaxy movie without James Gunn, but I think the MCU needs to take this risk, take a big swing to prove that all of the talent isn't really gone, and I don't believe that the talent is gone. Here, we're doing a completely different kind of Guardians movie, but it's still going to be part of the same franchise, the same legacy, the same succession. You can see where the themes are coming in here. This team is going to be completely different to what we've seen before. I want to introduce Beta Ray Bill into this movie as a leading man of Guardians Volume 4. And I also want to have Shala Bal, Silver Surfer from the Fantastic Four First Steps, reprise her role here again. I also want to introduce some deeper cut characters, like Rayalith from the most recent run on Amazing Spider-Man, where Peter is in space. I just want this Guardians team to feel different. Yes, feel comedic, but feel a little bit more foreign, maybe less humanoid to what we're used to. And the villain of this movie is going to be Magus, an alternate evil version of Adam Warlock, kind of like a clone gone wrong. It's going to be interesting because we're going to be exploring these kind of cult religious aspects of space, broadening our scope of the cosmic MCU with our brand new unfamiliar feeling team. It's really something that I think is quite exciting, and I hope you guys like my pitch for Guardians Volume 4. Let me know down in the comments. The post-credit scene of Guardians Volume 4 will see the team come into contact with not only the Nova Corps, but also Empress Lilandra of the Shi'ar Empire. Beta Ray Bill asks if the Guardians can be of any help, and Nova says that the only way they can help is by remaining silent, because the Guardians of the Galaxy are under arrest, setting our Guardians on an interesting new path in what I hope to be a Guardians Volume 5. Now, if you've seen Phase 1, you know that we have three prongs of the MCU: cosmic, supernatural, and street level. Here, I'm going to be pulling more on the supernatural with the return of the Immortal Hulk to Disney Plus in the Immortal Hulk Season 2. In this season, I'm going to continue to blend elements of Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk with the more contemporary runs on The Incredible Hulk by Philip Kennedy Johnson and Nick Klein. I'm going to be bringing in these elements of a kind of western southern horror that I think is going to clash but also complement, in some ways, what we did with Season 1. Now, we're also going to go a little bit bigger in scope this time, introducing some elements from the most recent run on the Hulk called The Infernal Hulk. In this story, the Hulk's body is possessed by an eldritch horror, and we're going to start to weave elements of this in, but I still want this to feel a little bit grounded, and that's why I'm going to introduce Jackie McGee. She's going to be a reporter character who's just going to keep us grounded in the human element of the story. I don't want everything to get so big that the audience gets lost, so Jackie is going to be a really fun and important addition to the cast. But there's also one more addition to the cast that I think is going to really excite you guys. You saw him on the thumbnail, and I'm introducing him right here, right now. In one of these episodes, the Hulk is going to come face to face with Ghost Rider. I think it's something really, really exciting from the Incredible Hulk run by Philip Kennedy Johnson, and I wanted to bring that amazing energy to Season 2 of The Immortal Hulk. And yes, Ghost Rider will return. And as one story on Disney Plus ramps up, another one winds itself down. But not without a big final hurrah. Daredevil Born Again Season 4 drops on Disney Plus April 2033, continuing the journey of Matt Murdock from his appearance in Born Again Season 3 and Spider-Man Back in Black. Daredevil Born Again Season 4 is the swan song of Charlie Cox as Daredevil in the MCU. And as I promised, we're going to be adapting Part 2 of Chip Zdarsky's run on Daredevil, but I'd also like to weave in some elements from the end of Charles Soule's run on Daredevil, which is the run that preceded Chip Zdarsky. That's going to be combined to create a really fascinating story, where Daredevil's Catholicism is front and centre. He's going to be dealing with these ideas of determinism. Is everything that he does preordained by God or some other malicious power, or is Daredevil actually free to choose? We're going to see Daredevil at his most determined, but also his most broken, and his most cynical, maybe even his most violent. This is going to be an epic final season for the original cast of Netflix's Daredevil, in a way that will not let fans down. Now, Charlie Cox's final adventure as the Man Without Fear might begin, but a whole new journey is about to begin on the big screen. With May 2033, we're bringing Storm in her own solo movie straight to the MCU. Aurora is going to be introduced in all of her glory, and her personal ties to characters like Black Panther and the regions of Wakanda are going to be fully explored in this, while leaving a little bit more room for expansion in a future Black Panther movie. But who could be the villain of our Storm movie? Well, in my mind, there's only one choice, and that's a choice that you might not have heard of before: Sebastian Shaw. Now, Sebastian Shaw was a massive member of the Hellfire Club, and I know him most from the Krakoa era of the X-Men. The Hellfire Club are kind of an underground, shady organisation of mutants, and Sebastian Shaw might be one of the shadiest of them all. With Storm's powers focusing on nature and the ecological battle of the world, I want Sebastian Shaw to be a real opposing force for Storm and what she believes so strongly within. But I also want to use Shaw to tease a little bit of where we're going to go with the broader X-Men universe within the MCU. I want there to be hints of new mutant flora and medications coming up out of the Hellfire Club. That's going to intrigue Storm, but she won't have enough time to deal with it because she has to stop Shaw. That's going to set the stage for the beginning of a very exciting era from the comic books that you'll have to wait to see more of. In the post-credit scene of Storm, Storm is flying across the world, happy after beating Sebastian Shaw, but still trying to clear her mind of the horrors of that fight. And she stops in the American South and meets a brand new character never before seen in the MCU. Here, we're going to introduce Rogue for the very first time. And now our big November release has come around again. And what better for November 2033 for a third movie in a famous series? The Fantastic Four return in Fantastic Four: The Negative Zone. The third movie in this Fantastic Four saga will see the Fantastic Four exploring the Negative Zone for the very first time. As usual, I want to push the visuals of the MCU the most with our Fantastic Four movies, and I want to pull a little bit here from Alex Ross's work on Fantastic Four Full Circle. That's one of the most amazing Fantastic Four graphic novels that I've ever read, and I love his take on the Negative Zone, the way time bends and shifts, and the way that the armies of the Negative Zone appear so menacing and so frightening against the meager Fantastic Four. In this movie, I want to pull not only from Jonathan Hickman's landmark run on the Fantastic Four, but also the heavily underrated Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo run on the Fantastic Four. That Waid and Wieringo run on the comics wasn't as massive or epic in scale as Hickman's, but it's got some really amazing heartfelt moments that I want to translate through here to this Fantastic Four movie. The focus is, and will always be, on family. And in a shocking and tragic twist, Johnny Storm will sacrifice his life to protect his family at the end of this third Fantastic Four movie. And in the post-credits scene during his funeral, a fan favourite character who had a special connection to Johnny will return. The Silver Surfer from the Guardians of the Galaxy will return to visit the FF, only to be devastated by the loss of the Human Torch. And as one iconic family is torn apart, a brand new family will burst onto the small screen. In February 2034, the Champions arrive on television. This team features Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, Ms. Marvel, Kitty Pryde, Jubilee, and the daughter of Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, who calls herself the Wasp. This team is going to be a heck of a lot of fun in the MCU, and it's going to bring a youthful energy and a lightness to Marvel's tone after what was actually quite a very bleak Fantastic Four 3. This team is going to face off against the Wrecking Crew, who I think are appropriately power scaled to this bunch of heroes. And in the post-credits scene, we're going to have a tease of Jocasta, who in the comics was the wife of Ultron. And I'm using that because Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne are going to be the beginning of the emotional core of this show. I haven't included their daughter for no reason. I want to give the MCU a faithful version of Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, but not quite as an active Ant-Man and the Wasp, more in a parental leadership, guiding role of their daughter, but they will be donning their costumes for some of the episodes of Champions. Janet Van Dyne in the comics was one of the founding members of the Avengers, and in our next movie, we're also going to see another member of the Avengers' first team. The invincible Iron Man bursts onto the big screen in May 2034. I know this is going to be controversial, but this is years after Avengers Secret Wars, and I think that Iron Man simply has to return. Kevin Feige has suggested that classic MCU characters will be recast, and this time, we're not just going to try and emulate what RDJ did. He's iconic, this is going to be iconic in a different way. This time we're going to follow the comics a little bit more closely, at least the early Iron Man comics, where people didn't know that Tony Stark was Iron Man, and that's going to be a permanent part of this character going forward. This time I want to take some inspiration from the artwork of Alex Ross again, but also Cafu, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, who did some really amazing Iron Man artwork based off Alex Ross's suit design. This Iron Man take is going to be very visually unique, and we're going to have classic characters return but recast, like Rhodey Rhodes and Pepper Potts. But who's the villain? Well, in my opinion, we should use Madame Mask and AIM. We're going to have Tony fight a battle on two fronts. Not only a physical battle against Madame Mask and her forces, but a corporate battle as Tony Stark and the head of Stark Industries. And to dial up the pressure of corporate espionage, Madame Mask is going to be employing Mystique to disrupt Tony Stark's enterprise. He can't just punch his way out of these problems, and he's going to have to balance his dual life as the pressure builds and builds and builds, and the circle closes in on him during this movie. It's going to be really fascinating to see that, and I hope you guys like my idea. Let me know in the comments who you'd like to play the recasted, rebooted Iron Man for the MCU. And before we move on to the next massive movie, which features the return of a fan favourite character from the original MCU, I'd like to kindly ask you guys to consider subscribing and leaving a like on this video. I was overwhelmed by your support on phase 1 of my MCU reboot, and I've got massive plans for the rest of this channel, with more pitches for MCU movies and TV shows, and DC fans, I'm not going to disappoint you guys either. I'm thinking of a pitch for the DCU Flash right now, and if you want to see all of these things, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much for your support, and let's get into the next big movie. Just in time for Halloween 2034, Scarlet Witch returns to the big screen in her own solo movie. This time, I want Scarlet Witch to act as a kind of legacy successor character to Doctor Strange. Now, to be clear, I'm not getting rid of Doctor Strange entirely, I just want Scarlet Witch to have a bit more prominence as her own character, and crucially as a hero. I think a lot of the time the Scarlet Witch has kind of been more villainous in the MCU, and I want Scarlet Witch to just be a bit more heroic this time around. And some of the major characters I'm going to introduce here are not only Scarlet Witch herself, but also Man-Thing, and she's going to be facing off against Mephisto in this really epic movie that's also going to reference her brother, Quicksilver. So we've reintroduced some legacy characters, but Marvel aren't going to be reliant on just what was good in the past. I want them to take big swings, and the next one might be their biggest swing yet. We're going to introduce Darkhawk to the big screen, a hero you might have never heard of before. Darkhawk was a popular character in Marvel Comics in the 90s. Christopher Powell was given a technological/magical amulet that gave him superpowers and amazing 90s looking costume. I want to lean into the cool 90s aspects of the character in this movie, not making it corny, but just making it unique. Kind of similar to how Absolute Batman also leans into the more gritty aesthetic of 90s comics. Now, the villain of Darkhawk can be any one of a number of different characters. If you want to go more down the campy side of things, you could do Evil Hawk, who, as it sounds, is kind of just an evil version of Darkhawk. But if you wanted it to be a little bit more serious, and tie into what we've already been doing with characters like the Hulk, I would introduce the UFOs. I really like the UFOs because they've got so many different powers, and just like we did for Alpha Flight, it's cool to see a hero or a team of heroes fight against a team of villains instead of just one big bad guy. So I think that's going to make a really interesting antagonist for Darkhawk, and we can lean into that 90s aesthetic to make this something really memorable and really special. Next up is a release for May 2035, which will be about 20 years since Avengers Age of Ultron. It sounds crazy, I know. And I want to have the return of the Avengers' leading man in a way that you wouldn't expect. In May 2035, Captain America returns, in Captain America: Sentinels of Liberty. In this story, I want to combine Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson, and have them both be Captain America in a massive epic movie that still stays true to what makes Captain America compelling even in the modern day. There's a lot said about if Captain America is really a good hero or not, if he represents America, which is a nation that can sometimes do good and bad things. Now, I want Captain America: Sentinels of Liberty to pull from some of the most recent comics, like Captain America: Sentinel of Liberty, pulling from Steve Rogers, and Captain America: Symbol of Truth, pulling from Sam Wilson. That ideological battle between what America is, what America isn't, and what America should be is something that I want to be central to this movie. And our antagonist for Captain America 5 is going to be the Serpent Society. What we were kind of promised all the way back when they announced Phase 3 that got replaced with Civil War. I think the Serpent Society would be really cool, add a little bit of colour to these Captain America movies, which, ever since The Winter Soldier, were always on a bit of a darker path. I think it would be a really fun movie to see these two heroes interacting and further that theme of legacy and succession in Phase 2. And now Phase 2 is coming to an end, but it's going to end with a 1-2 punch that you are never going to forget. We're going to go straight to Disney Plus in October 2035 with a one-shot special Ghost Rider zooming his way onto the small screen. Now this might be the same, or it might be a different version of Ghost Rider to what we saw in the Immortal Hulk Season 2. The story that I wanted to pull from, where we introduced Ghost Rider in the Hulk TV show, had an older version of Ghost Rider, and Ghost Rider is a legacy, a mantle that's passed on to so many different people. So I'm not sure which version of Ghost Rider I want to do here, but I'd rather go with Johnny Blaze than someone like Danny Reyes, who is a bit of a later, younger version of the character. In this one-shot special episode focusing on Ghost Rider, we're going to fully explore the humanity, the pathos, and the awesome visuals that make Ghost Rider such an enduring character in the comic books. And we're also going to introduce two characters that are going to be integral to the final amazing project of Phase 2. And these two characters are Elsa Bloodstone and the return of Werewolf by Night from Disney Plus, that was released a few years ago. Now Elsa Bloodstone is a lesser known character, but she's actually making her way to Marvel Rivals in this latest season. I think it's called Night at the Museum, or something like that. And she's going to be joining Ghost Rider in this one-shot special. And the post-credit scene of Ghost Rider is going to directly set up our final project. To really get into the head of Ghost Rider, I imagine that this whole special will be voiced, narrated by Ghost Rider himself. And at the end, in the post-credit scene, we reveal who he's been telling this story to. We pan out from his chair to reveal that he's sitting in the Sanctum Sanctorum, and he's talking to Blade, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange, Werewolf by Night, Man-Thing, and Elsa Bloodstone. This is going to set up our next massive final movie, something that you guys have been waiting for ever since the start of Phase 1, Midnight Suns. I promised to all of you in my comments that I would deliver, and here is the team-up movie you've been waiting for. The Midnight Suns are unlike any of the teams the MCU has ever seen, and they're our third and final major team that we've introduced in Phase 2. Here, we really make good on that name, Worlds Collide. This band of misfits and anti-heroes is nothing like what we've seen before, and they're going to be facing a dark entity called Chthon as the major villain of this big movie. We are going to go crazy with some of the visuals of this movie. Astral projection, the dark dimension, being lost in the Midnight Mission, Blade fighting against vampires. All of it is going to be a feast for the eyes, and it's going to be well worth the years of build-up that got us to this point. But not without one final twist. At the end of the movie, it's going to be revealed that although the Midnight Suns defeated Chthon, an aspect of his consciousness and being still remains, and that aspect of his being has been manipulating the events of one of our most famous MCU heroes all since the start of the MCU reboot. The Immortal Hulk isn't as self-contained as we previously thought. In fact, the Hulk has been manipulated by Chthon this whole time. And now, the Hulk's body is going to start to be infected and possessed by this aspect of Chthon, and that is going to explode in Phase 3. And with that, Phase 2 Worlds Collide comes to an end. Let me know in the comments what you thought about my plans. I'm really excited to bring this video to you and see the response, and if you've been here ever since Phase 1, drop me a comment. I read every single one of your guys' comments, and it's really been amazing to see this community grow. I'm going to be working on Phase 3 with all of your guys' input to make it the best I can possibly make it. And if you don't want to miss that or any other of my videos, please hit like and consider subscribing. I'll see you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.